All right, another live feed this evening, and this is predicated on an email that I received, and I want to touch on it. I don't know what the interest level is. Pretty much, how are you, TJ? I don't know what the interest level is on this. I'll wait for a few people to jump in. I'll touch on another topic or two. Did you guys see the while we're waiting for a few people to jump in? Did you guys see the announcement from Cummins today? They're going to be recalling like 500,000 engines, predicated on I think it was some DEF-related issues. Let's see. EPA announced that Cummins will voluntarily recall 500,000 2010 to 2015 medium to heavy duty trucks having to do with faulty emissions control systems. So I guess it sounds like it's emitting a lot more nitrogen oxide than it should. The end of that article mentions the useful life of a heavy duty vehicle is 10 years or 435,000 miles. I thought that was an interesting number. I'd be really curious to see where they got 435,000 miles. I think most trucks that I know, most drivers that I know, that's not even half of the useful life of the truck. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It'll be interesting to see how many individuals with those trucks have been experiencing issues, breakdowns, things of that nature due to the emissions. Be interesting to see how that plays out. What else is kind of interesting news? Probably have by now seen the article where Uber is getting out of the autonomous trucks for now. They left it open. They left the door wide open, actually, not even cracked. They left it wide open. I didn't really see. I saw many of the articles kind of citing that. I read one. I didn't read 10 of them. But in the one that I read, I didn't see where they cited the specific reason for that right now, other than what I would assume it sounds like. There was a lawsuit from I think one of the co-founders from. Actually, I'm going to mess that up because I don't recall exactly. I think there was a potential lawsuit and a settlement and some other things. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it or if it was other reasons. But I thought it was pretty big news. I haven't heard really anyone spend much time discussing that, and maybe it's because a lot of the details are unknown. I don't know. Let me jump onto my page so I can see the comments. I want to read this gentleman's email. I'm not going to give his last name. Let's see. I have too many tabs open. Gosh. While I'm looking for this, let me just log back in, I guess. His email essentially said, he is, I think, a relatively new owner-operator, and he is looking for input and advice on specifically dealing with, I guess, brokers, right? I mean, so I talk a lot about costs, and he had mentioned that as well. Here's his email. Let me pull one of them up. And he sort of asks if, I guess he's having a difficult time. He said he's never heard a live call between a broker and a driver. And he actually said, look, there are no owner-operator starter kits. And I thought that was funny, actually, because there's not. There's just a lot of hard lessons that one has to learn before they jump into the truck and venture down that lease op or owner-op path. And so he was sort of asking if maybe I might do something sort of same time, same channel every week, that sort of thing. I don't know how much interest there would be in that. I can certainly discuss, load boards. that's not a particularly big issue. I mean, that's generally available, right? I discuss it at a really high level because it's generally available. Anybody for, you know, 100, 200 bucks can go and get access to any of the load boards and start looking at data, looking at rates, looking at lanes, right? And that data is really pretty easy to understand. I don't know. In fact, I was just watching Loshan's channel, and it sounds like he's kind of talking over some of the rates on DAT. Sounds like he's been doing that for a couple of weeks or a month or more, maybe, I don't know. But he's doing that. Like he's kind of you know, mentioning that. So again, I don't know. I think that information is generally available. You know, guys like Loshan are discussing that, so that's good. To me, the owner-operator call, calling the brokers is pretty simple. I don't know that it warrants a lot of conversation, but maybe we do it so often, so frequently, we're not, we're just sort of immune to it. It's just part of our, part of the daily business. Oh, we can start now. Good, little dog's here. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know that there's that much information. I thought what I'd do in this video is talk about kind of how we make that call and all the legwork that you do before you ever pick up that phone, or in my opinion, what you should do before you ever pick up that phone to make that phone call. So I thought I'd spend a few minutes and do some of that. Zach says he'd be interested. Loshan here, he's in here. Yeah, you're welcome, man. And I thought that's good, right? So Loshan's, I don't know how long your videos typically are. This one was about an hour long. And he sort of went through every region for dry van, reefer, flatbed, step deck, whole 9 yards, right? Oh, now Canel's here, so we got to start all over. So I think that's good, right? So if you're looking like, where's the hot lanes? Right, go check out Loshan. I think he does, I don't know, Loshan, do you do that every Tuesday when the info comes out? I'm not sure. I don't need to do that here, right, if he's doing that there and others, but I'll spend a couple minutes and I'll talk about sort of how things go down. I'll go way back to the very first call that, and I'll share with kind of how stupid I looked. The very first call, because we all have to start somewhere, right? So the very first call that I made, was on a Friday night. It was kind of late, and never in my wildest dreams did I think that brokers would not be open 24/7. I mean, trucking's 24/7, 365. Why wouldn't brokers be open? I ended up calling C.H. Robinson, and I got a gentleman on the phone Friday night, and the conversation literally went like this. I said, hey, my name is Scott. Here's our company. He's like, okay, time out. Do you have a T number? I was like, no, what's that? He's like, all right, we got to set you up with the T number. So he sets me up. What's your MC number? We get all those details out of the way. And I said, look, I've never booked a load. I have no questions. I have no idea what to even ask. I got no idea. All I know is I got a truck that's down in Carthage, Missouri, and I found this load on your load board, and I'm calling about it. He's like, well, what's the load number, right? So most brokerages or load boards will have some sort of a number, right? Hey, call this extension, ask for whatever, Jody, load number 1234, that kind of nonsense. This gentleman was kind enough to spend probably 30, 45 minutes on the phone. Tell me what information they typically offered. And I don't know how many calls I've made since then, 1,000 or more probably. The info is pretty standard. Typically what you want to do is you want to identify those lanes that are hot and attractive, and that's really easily done, again, via these load boards, because you can find the truck to load ratios, and that's what this game is. If you guys remember way back to one of my first channel, one of my first videos, you know, I sort of likened this game of transportation to kind of a casino, and that's what this game is about. It's about using the odds and stacking them in your favor in every opportunity that you can. So when you look at load to truck densities, you want to find where there's a lot of freight, a lot of loads, and very few trucks, and that's a lane that you want to take a peek at. Having said that, I think the mistake that a lot of individuals make, let's just pick a lane, right? Let's pick a lane, Oklahoma City to LA. I think a lot of individuals look at that lane and they go, oh good, that pays whatever, well, $250 a mile. The problem is they don't spend the time to look at the freight coming out of LA to see what those rates are like. Oftentimes, if you've got a really crazy rate, and again, in today's dollars, we're talking, $3 or plus a mile going into a particular area, it's because that area probably has a poor ratio coming out and you're going to get a much lower rate. All right, so understand that. So let's talk about what information you should have before you ever pick up that phone. What makes life really, really simple, I hope you're sitting down. I haven't said this in a while. Do you know your cost per mile, right? If you know what your cost per mile is, then things get tremendously easier when you're gonna make this phone call, because you wanna know what your costs are, right? So if your cost per mile is, just pick a number, $1.50, right? Jump on Google Maps or whatever software you wanna use to identify what the mileage is from Oklahoma City to LA, right? You find out what that mileage is and you find out what your costs are. Ideally, you wanna have a salary already loaded into your cost per mile. So if you're going to calculate the mileage, and let's say it's whatever, I don't know, 2,000 miles, whatever it is, at $1.50, you know what your costs are going to be, right? And so in that particular instance, great, you know what your minimum has to be, right? You know what you got to be to sort of break even. Now, by breaking even, again, you've already got your salary figured into that cost, and so you're ahead of the game. Once you get on that phone call with the broker, there's going to be a few things that you need to be prepared to ask. You want to ask them, where actually does this pick up? And I would prefer, and you can do this on Google Maps, you can just type in a zip code. I would ask for specifically the zip code, right? So ask for the zip code for your pick, ask for the zip code for your delivery. Type that in, it's going to spit out a mileage, right? Do the quick math, right? On your phone, your calculator, whatever, to say, great, whatever that mileage is from the pick to the delivery, multiply that by your cost per mile. And that's sort of where you want to be, right? That's sort of a baseline that you want to start with. At that point, you need to understand a few other things. What's the weight, right? In this case, what time of the year is it? If it's winter, if it's summer, right? You're going to have completely different weather conditions going over the mountains. You can have additional fuel burn going over the mountains. You want to check the time that's on this load, right? So what time does it pick? What time does it deliver? What you often hear from brokers is this: well, it's going to pick at whatever, 0800, and I'll get you a delivery time. Understand this, right? Just as average, right? Most drivers can probably, very easily run 600 miles a day. So if you're looking at something that's long haul, and you want to make sure that you're considering the time for this unload, you really need to I would really encourage you to hammer out a delivery date. Because let's say that this is whatever, an 1,800 mile run. If you're going to be picking at 0800, you know that you should be able to deliver sometime around that 0800 3 days later. If this load doesn't deliver until late that evening or maybe the next morning, so it's a 4-day run, 3 days worth of miles that actually turns into 4 days worth of time, then you need to be factoring in additional money for basically being their cold storage that you're going to hold it or whatever it may be. Otherwise, you're losing a day. And I think that's where I mentioned in my last video, that's where I think a lot of guys fall into a dangerous habit when they are looking at things like cost per day or revenue per day model, right? They think, hey, this is going to be a 3-day run. Guess what? It turned out to be a 4-day run. Did you pull in enough revenue to secure 4 days worth of your truck sort of being held hostage by this freight? So I think that pick and delivery time, be really cautious when they tell you, hey, it's going to be, well, I'll get you one. Don't worry about it. I'll get you a delivery date. The delivery date's going to matter on how you price this. Same thing, especially for those runs that you pick up sort of middle to the end of the week, right? Are you going to deliver on Saturday, or are you going to have to hold this until Monday? So you really want to consider that. And I used this example the other day in my last video. I mean, we made the mistake of, we were told it was going to deliver on a Saturday, and we didn't call to verify that the shipper was going to be open. And guess what? Shipper wasn't open. Had we known that the shipper wasn't open on Saturday and this in fact had to deliver on Monday, we would have asked for a couple $1,000s more on this run. As it turns out, we got busted by a broker who did the kind of the okey doke and said, "Oh man, sorry about that, but we'll pay you $250 a day for layover." $250, $250 a day doesn't even begin to cover the revenue that we lost. The driver lost on that deal as well because now he's sitting, not making miles. We're not making revenue. Everybody loses in that except the broker. So, I would really encourage you to make sure that those receivers are open. I'm sure that there are plenty of trustworthy brokers that are out there, but this is your business, right? Their business is to make money. Your business is to ensure that you're going to make money as well. So you're going to find out what that weight is. Weight is another component, right? Depending on the weather, it's kind of a big deal. If where you're going is crazy high winds, you might not want to be taking a really light load, right? You might be stuck for a day sitting in a truck stop. So you want to consider weight. You also want to consider weight relative to fuel burn, all right? As I've given you guys the example a couple times before, just to keep it really simple, if you consider 40,000 pounds to be a full load in the trailer, for every 10,000 pounds of freight that you don't haul, that will save you about 4.4% in fuel savings, right? So if you have a 20,000 pound load, you should have about an 8.8% savings on your fuel burn. The same is true as well, right? If the broker says, hey, this is going to be 20,000 pounds, you pull out of there and it's loaded with 40,000 pounds, you made a financial decision on 40,000, or excuse me, on 20,000 pounds, or at least you should have. You should have been aware of that. If the broker tells you that, oh, hey, I'm renting the whole trailer, you can call nonsense really quickly and say, look, I made a financial decision based on 20,000 pounds. This is going to cost me another 9% in fuel burn. And so either we're going to renegotiate the term or you guys are going to take 20,000 pounds off. I don't care, you choose, right? So in any event, I just think it's one of those situations you got to understand this. Have all of your data, have all of your information. Another thing, like when you see that a load is, again, picking in Oklahoma City and delivering in LA, right? It's good just to go ahead and map out that mileage. Have a general idea. That way you know what it is, kind of ballpark. When you get on the phone, you ask for the zip codes, then you can narrow it down to a level of specificity. I think it's also fair to understand that this is an opportunity. These calls with the broker probably last about a minute and a half. Right? So really short, really sweet. You're going to ask for pickup times, locations, zip codes, delivery times. You're going to ask for weight. If you're hauling reefer or flatbed, anything like that, you're going to ask for any level of details that come into play, right? Does this need to be ran at neg 10 or 50 degrees, whatever? Again, that's going to matter. For those guys that are running reefer, you're probably going to average about 15 gallons of burn a day. And so if you don't have to burn 15 gallons, if this load is running, not at neg 10 or 0, that's just savings in your pocket, but you want to ask for those kind of things because it matters. Ask for any specifics, right? Do I need a certain number of load bars or straps or this or that? If not, let them know, hey, I've got plenty of load bars. I've got plenty of straps. This is an opportunity. You got a minute and a half. And there's a thing called an elevator pitch. What that means is if you get onto an elevator with someone, you've got to sell them on your value before that elevator ride wins. And that's exactly what dealing with a broker is. You've got a minute and a half or so to sell your value and get a lot of information. A lot of these calls can be quick and to the point. Once you get that information, quickly calculate with some of the other numbers that you've already built in. You've already got your costs laid out. You know what the mileage is. You know what the days are for this run. You know what the delivery times are. You know what the other specifics are. Do the quick math and don't be afraid to say, hey, give me just a moment. I just want to run a couple of numbers. Right? Don't be afraid to ask for that. The same thing here is what a lot of drivers do, I'm afraid, is they sort of tend to ask, what is this lane, or what is this rate, or what is this run paying? I don't know that's the best move, right? I think the other thing that you need to consider carefully is a lot of brokers post rates on the load board, right? Whatever, hey, this run pays $2,500. Be really cautious with those numbers because I think human tendency is that we're going to call on the ones that we find to be somewhat attractive. So if we see a run going from point A to point B and we think, oh, you know what, $2,500 seems interesting to me. Great, it's interesting, but they've also sort of just played a mind trick on you. They've set an expectation. They've set a bar, right? It doesn't mean you should not also do your quick homework on looking to see what the load ratios are, load densities to truck ratios are. Because just because 2,500 might sound appealing to you and that's why you clicked on the load, if you do just another minute or two's worth of homework, you might in fact determine that you might actually be able to get somewhere around $3,500 for this run. But what they've done is they've set the expectation at 2,500. Had you done all the homework ahead of time, you might say, look, I'm probably going to go in at 3,500, maybe 3,700, hoping that we get to 3,500 as our end number. But when they set that expectation, you sort of have this, gosh, if I ask for 3,700, they might just hang up the phone. If you know what the value is, and the market, everybody's always like, well, how are rates determined and this and that? Guys, understand, and we all see a lot of the argument on these other Facebook forums about rates are all, low rates are all because, drivers are taking cheap freight. I don't know what percentage of that actually has an impact, right? Nobody does. My opinion is it's a really low percentage. This market, this industry survives on supply and demand, and that's what it is. You look at the capacity of freight compared to the capacity of trucks available to move that freight out of that area, right? And it's no different than anything else. If there's a whole boatload of freight and not a lot of trucks dropping off in that area, the advantages are in your favor. If you go down to Florida where there's a ton of trucks, or for that matter, maybe not a ton of trucks, but certainly not a ton of freight coming out. I mean, I was just looking earlier. I mean, there were rates as low as 96 cents per mile. Those were the rates 3 years ago. So don't let the number that's posted on that load board determine your negotiating point. You need to do your homework, understand what your costs are, do your homework relative to the load to truck load ratios to truck ratios, and determine what you think is a real valid number for that. And again, you can get a lot of this information on DAT or truck stops. Those are the two that we use, but I'm sure some of that other information is out there. But it's up to you to do this homework. This might sound really complicated. Honestly, guys, once you do this a few times, this takes about 2 or 3 minutes of work pre-call before you ever make that phone call to that broker. I mean, it's really that simple. Once you get into the negotiation piece of it, it typically goes one of two ways. No, hey, you want $3,500 for this load? No, we're at like $2,200. That's all I got in it. And you can say, look, my lowest is whatever, 33, and they'll say, thanks, no, we don't have a deal. Good luck. Or they'll say, hey, you know what, I can't do 35, I'm asking 25, but hey, we could do 3,000. Then it's up to you. That's where you need to sell your value of, look, I've got plenty of hours on my 70, or I just came off of a reset, or I got a fresh 10, or look, I'll be empty in an hour, all those sorts of things. I've got the right straps. I've been to that receiver before. I can communicate well. I'm going to text you. I'm going to, don't have to worry about bugging me. I'll text you. I'll email you. I'll call you with updates. I'll let you know all is smooth. That's where you want to sell your value. If they don't have to babysit you, quite possibly that might be worth a little bit more money to them. I mean, at its most basic level, the simplest level, that's the easiest way to handle dealing with, making those phone calls to the broker. Now, this gentleman, Thomas, thanks for the email and thanks for the topic. He had mentioned, listen, he sort of said, look, I'm a little hesitant to pick up the phone and call. Like, I'm a little scared with this. When I made my first phone call, right, loads and freight and rates were certainly not in my favor at all. In this particular case, this guy, I think he, genuinely felt sorry for me. But again, we all have to start somewhere. And as I've said in a lot of other videos, I think the confidence that you gain by knowing what your costs are and already running some of these numbers before you ever pick up that phone, take your cost, by the run, by the miles, have that information, be prepared to ask for a few other pieces of the puzzle, and then make an offer. I mean, it's really simple. I mean, this all goes down in a minute and a half or 2 minutes. It's not painful at all, right? Now, for those of you guys that are have new authorities, things of that nature, that can present a little bit of a problem, right? Some brokers might not be apt to want to move your freight. I can tell you, I've got a couple of individuals that I speak to rather frequently that have had new authorities, and they are able to overcome that by selling their value, right? Yeah, I might have a new authority now, but I've been driving for 10 years. I've done a lease op before. I've been a company driver or whatever. Man, I know what we're doing, right? I'll communicate with you. I'll text, I'll email, I'll make the phone calls, whatever it is you want, right? It's just not that difficult, right? But the most important thing to understand here is that when you find yourself in an opportunity where the rates or the loads are in your favor, that's a good thing. Again, as I say in a lot of videos, you're obligated to ask and they're obligated to say no. I mean, you're obligated to ask for 35, or they come back and say, look, 27's it. Well, if you've already determined what your costs are and what this run your break even is, and again, your break even already assumes that you have your salary in there, then you can work for that. If 25 or 27 is the number and you want to take it, so be it, fine, take it, right? They'll send you over the rate confirmation. You can sign that and send it back to them. The whole process doesn't take, 10 minutes, right? You can do that stuff electronically. So don't be afraid, don't be hesitant to pick up the phone and make calls, because understand, brokers are looking for trucks. Brokers are looking not just for trucks, but if you happen to be a good driver that's going to add this value, make their life a little bit simpler, you're far more attractive than just the average individual that's going to do a really poor job. If you don't think that there's a lot of individuals that are going to do a really poor job, just go spend a few minutes and jump on some of these other Facebook forums and read some of the comments that are out there, and you'll shake your head. It's hard to believe that some of these individuals are in business. Let's jump to a couple questions. Hey, no worries, LaShawn, you're welcome, man. Quick William, Zach, Michael, how's it going? Keith, Subwoofer, 10K in the bank. Good for you, man. Scott Dyer says, first time on your feed, just subscribed to your channel yesterday. Well, welcome, TJ. How's it going? Let's see. Job security for me, at least for 2 years, just for the Cummins recall. Very nice. Very nice. I don't know if 90% is the right number for emissions 90% of breakdowns are due to emissions, but it certainly seems like it's a lot. Look, everybody's leg humping on Loshan. Yo, it's your neighbor Bobby. What else we have in here? Let's see. Jim Drina says, eased out of the clutch and got my bobtail moving smoothly. Well, that's better than Cannell did the other day. Cannell couldn't get his bobtail moving smoothly. He was like walking on top of the road. He blew out a steer tire. Lucky, you're lucky, man. We talked about that. Glad you're all right. Light Bright, how's it going, man? Snorlord. Beard's in here, Greg Inman. I did not see. Is Howard in here? Yeah, there he is. Howard, it's past your bedtime, man. How many people, I guess, quick question, how many drivers communicate with, by communicate, how many drivers actually deal with brokers themselves, right? Again, I have a sense that if you're a lease op, maybe if you're a lease op, you don't. I think most owner ops do. I can see where the first few times it might be a little concerning. I guess, like I said, I just never thought about it, because after I did it the first time or two, it becomes really easy. I think it also, for me, it also kind of becomes a little bit of addicting, right? You're looking at all the rates that are out there, all the runs, trying to find the best opportunity, for your truck or to make money, because this is real money to you, right? And so to me, I don't mind it at all. I don't mind at all jumping on the load boards and looking for opportunities. Sergeant Ringo, how are you? Yeah, isn't that right, Howard? Howard says 53-foot warehouse cost owner operators a lot of money, and There's a lot of truth to that. We've had a couple of examples of this. We had an example where I had booked a couple of runs for a driver. He had like a 4,000 mile week lined up. I mean, he was excited, ready to go, but obviously, you know, some loads and unloads need to happen timely for that to work out legally. And so he got to his first run of the week up in somewhere around Seattle, and he got unloaded pretty quick, and he couldn't figure out why he was just sitting in the dock. Well, they had unloaded his product, all the product that was on his truck, they'd unloaded that. They'd put other product on our trailer because they didn't have space, and they were gonna let our guys sit there for a couple of hours while they used our trailer and our reefer fuel as cold storage and square footage. And so I called the broker and I told him what happened. And he said, no, I know that shipper. They don't do that, or that receiver. And I said, would you like for me to send you the pictures that the driver sent to me? And so I just told the broker, I said, hey, here's the deal. In 15 minutes, we're gonna pull away from that dock. And so if that stuff is on our trailer, then we'll just place it right there in the middle of the yard. But you guys are not gonna sit there and hold up our truck and all the revenue that we have for this driver and for us, because you guys want to use our stuff for cold storage. That's not what we're here for. We did our job, get somebody else's crap off our trailer. And that conversation didn't go well, right? Just understand that when you deal with brokers, you get more bees with honey, right? And so having that, you know, professional conversation, the first call or two with, hey, we got a problem, we got somebody else's stuff on here, like, I'm done, I did my job, can you help me get this stuff off the trailer? And again, as I said in the last couple of videos, if you will ask somebody for their help, in this case the broker or the receiver, the shipper, if you ask for help, oftentimes you're more apt to get it versus just being a jerk. Once things, you know, aren't trending in the right direction, then you may have to get a little bit more firm. Benjamin Duke says, don't forget, as a side note, the brokers have thousands invested in tracking software and everything you do, as well as notes, and that catchphrase they have to use on you to get their lowball price. They do have a lot invested, no doubt. I saw a comment the other day, this individual, and look, I understand the topic of not wanting to maybe have your phone tracked. Whatever, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. In this particular case, this individual said, you know, no way in hell, I'm not gonna download MacroPoint and this and that, whatever. Well, as it turns out, that information, if I recall the thread correctly, it was in the contract, right? That they would download MacroPoint or some type of app for tracking. And the guy said, no way in hell, I'm not gonna do that. And he said he just left, and he said, I'll have it delivered tomorrow, don't call me, right? Now, whether or not the guy really did that or not, who knows, but it just lends itself to that's probably not the best way to interact with the broker. And as much as carriers and drivers want to despise brokers, understand that they are the individual writing the check. They're your customer, right? Like that or not. And so don't miss that. I think a lot of guys miss that. There are plenty of times when I have held customers accountable in the past. And so I'm not opposed to holding customers accountable, right? But you can do it in a professional manner to try to facilitate improving that relationship before you just come out and say, this is what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. Maybe it worked out for this individual, but I promise you, right, things will turn around, and when rates change and lanes change, and this guy wants to make a phone call back to that broker, as Benjamin Duke said, I promise you a lot of these brokers track and keep scorecards on how you perform. Did you pick on time? Did you deliver on time? Where's there a damage? Where's there a claim? Did you make your check calls on time? Those sorts of things. How did you perform? Oh, by the way, they also track the rates that you accept. So understand, if you work with broker A and you average $250 a mile, and you put yourself in a really bad spot in a bad area so that you've got to take $1.80 a mile freight, guess what? That's what they now see. And so now you're going to have a diluted average relative to your price. So you're going to have to fight really hard to get your average back up, right? And it's going to take a lot more negotiation. It's just really problematic. So we'll understand that a lot of these brokers do track that. Let's see, items you need to be fluent in to negotiate with a broker. Number one, know your cost per mile. I don't know how you could, I don't know how you could price a run without knowing what your costs are. I mean, then it's just a guess or it's hope. And everybody knows what my opinion is on hope being a business plan. Let's see, so number one, know your cost per mile. Then want to change the payload weight, adjust fuel price. Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Canal says, it was not a fun moment, but luckily no one was on the right side. That looked like possibly maybe one of the worst places for a steer tire to blow out. Looked like you were on a little bit of a hill, on a little bit of a curve, up against the guardrail with the right front tire that was blown up against the guardrail, like just about everything. Oh, by the way, it was raining. Everything bad that could happen looked like had happened. Trick a long way. What do you think is a good gross for a lease team? You know what? We don't run team, so if Loshan's still in here, he's probably better suited to answer that question because we don't run team. So I apologize. Mark Fisher, how do you figure? I did the numbers and they look good to me. I just got back from Seattle for an interview to start. I'm not sure if what you're talking about. Sorry about that. Harding's in the house. Can you believe my safety guy wants me to check my tire pressure every day? I can't believe that. Dan Lemke, Darda Swift takes care of all this for me. Very good. Victoria, any recommendations for agents to put clothes for owner ops? Food Mooch loves his dispatcher. Bill Hunter's in the house. Gary Roach, how's it going, Gary? All I know is I can't haul a load for less than $1,800 and make any money at the end of the day. Bill Ford drove Canal to art therapy classes. You know, I didn't know what to say about that, really. I didn't know. I thought that's fun. I'm like the least artistic person that there is. Benjamin Duke says they can ask for the lowball number and you can say no. Absolutely right. I mean, look, this is a mutual business decision, right? Both parties have to agree to it. You bet. Hey, Grace. Actually, I'm not going to say anything to her. She can do whatever she wants. Let's see. Matthew B says, thanks, Scott, for joining us on the side of the steering wheel. You are welcome. I don't know if I said happy to beard or not. Let me jump way back down. Gerwitz says, if you want to track me using my phone, then it'll cost you $300 per day till the load is off my trailer. I only accept cash up front, so you better have it Western Union. Nice. How come you guys are not blocking this guy? I don't know, man. Look, to me, it's just sort of the nature of the business. I think it's part of it. It's 2018, and the analogy that I used, Gary, when the guy was whining about tracking and that sort of stuff, the analogy I used is this. I said, my bet, I'm willing to bet that you are the very first person that whenever you make a $50 purchase on Amazon, that you probably track every stop that it makes along the way. But all of a sudden, you have some problem with a shipper or a broker that's going to give their $50,000 to $100,000 package to a stranger and just expect that I'll just get it there by tomorrow, and don't worry, don't call me, I'll call you. I don't know. Seems a little unreasonable. I probably would want to know where my $100,000 package is. Just like that, I guarantee you that guy tracks his package along the way from Amazon. So to me, I think it's a little, I personally think it's a little bit ridiculous. And quite frankly, I don't know. I mean, you can uninstall that software if you want. That's pretty easy. But to me, why not add value to that broker, make their life a little bit easier? I mean, that way. I mean, I guess the problem I have is when when drivers do download the tracking software, but then you still have to receive the check calls. Like, that's where I would lose my mind. That's just me. Mary St. Omer, brokers don't understand Teams. I love to tell them. I unloaded it yesterday. Very good. Oh, you're talking about the new Amazon delivery service? I read an article on that a couple weeks back. They were saying something like, hey, drivers can earn $300,000. But then when you get into it, that's like the maximum that you can earn. And you have to have like, I think it was 20 Sprinter vans that you would have to purchase to do that. So it just kind of got funky really quick. Yeah, Alice, probably so. Probably so. Larry June says, I don't have a problem with them. At least they're not calling me. That's sort of how I look at it. Again, it's just a benefit. I mean, you're making their life easier. I mean, here's the thing. If you put yourself in that broker's shoes, right? They have responsibility to their customer who's paying them, which is the shipper. And I'm going to guess that shipper wants to know where their product's at and when it's going to be there. Make sure all is well, all is on time. So the broker is your customer. If you're making that, you're going to do one of two things. You're going to make their life easier, possibly even make your life easier as well, or you're going to fight it and it's going to be a problem. If I'm a broker and I got a guy that's going to fight it, if I have any number of other trucks that are calling on that freight, I just pass. I mean, honestly, like, I don't want to deal with someone that's just going to be a pain in the ass to deal with, right? I mean, this business, we all have enough of that, right? You guys got, knuckleheads like me to deal with. You got dispatch, right? You got safety guys. You got all that kind of nonsense. Plus, you got all the freaking general public, the four-wheelers. You got dock managers, lumpers, etc. Brokers. I mean, there's a lot of pain in the ass already in this industry. I don't know why we'd want to add more to it. Let's see, Howard says to Harding, give them the number for the tablet, then you don't have to worry about them calling you directly. Well, there you go. There's the answer. So for those of you guys that run tablets, if yours is like ours, then maybe you can just give them that number and they can track it. Problem solved. It's not on your phone. Gary Roach, if you run a tablet, it's not on your phone. They don't have to pay you. You don't have to charge them $300 a day. Michael says, hi, Scott. Any way to contact the shipper and customer to inform them how the broker is representing their product? Would it be worth it? Yes. I mean, look, once you know where you're picking at, I mean, you're gonna be there. You can absolutely do that. I talked with the CEO of Doc 411. I don't know, what was it, Howard? Probably a month or so ago. And I want to formally do a video about that. I'm really going to encourage those that watch the channel to download that app. It's free. It is the transportation equivalent of Yelp, if you're not familiar with it, except that it's far simpler to use, and it provides us kind of sort of from this side of the industry as the carriers or the drivers to mention when a particular shipper or receiver is doing a great job, or to let everybody else know when they're doing a really horrible job. And then they are working with those shippers or receivers to improve if they're getting bad ratings, right? And this is a business model that they're going after. Young guy, and really a fascinating, really an amazing story. I won't go into much of it now. The guy's doing some really impressive stuff with some veterans that he's hiring and working with. It's just a cool story, and I'll try to do a more formal video here in the next week or two about that. But that's an easy way for us to be able to hold shippers and receivers accountable, and to possibly even let the shippers know, Michael, maybe how brokers are representing them in their product. If a broker does a great job, I think you should call the shipper and say, hey man, this broker's doing a great job. Let the broker know. If they're doing a horrible job, I think it's fair, absolutely, to hold them accountable. They certainly hold us accountable, right? Mooch says he never answers his phone because the number I give out is not the phone I answer. So I have to share this because this is such a pet peeve. So yesterday I made about, I don't know, 6 or 8 phone calls for individuals that have sent resumes in. Actually, I'm going to spend a couple minutes on this topic. I made about 6 or 8 phone calls. Individuals that sent their resumes in to work for us. Now, they had saw a job description that was rather detailed, didn't leave out a lot of the really important things, right? A lot of the important things were in there. The first couple of guys I called said, look, I want to be home every night and I want to have weekends off. Our job description specifically stated, right, we didn't offer that. So I don't know why you would submit, like, I don't know what they think, right? It's like, hey, I know your job description said that you absolutely are like on the other end of that spectrum, but this is still what I want, right? I don't have anything for you, sorry, right? So I had those conversations. Then I had the individual that said, hey, I've been driving for 18 years, and I want more home time, and I want to work less, and I want to make more. And I said, well, how often do you want to be home? I want to be home every 2 weeks for 3 to 4 days. And I said, okay. I said, well, what are you making now? Okay, he says, I make 51 cents a mile. I said, right, I don't care what you make per mile. That means nothing to me. And for those guys that get all hung up on cents per mile, like I get it, like it's an attractive thing to do, but surely most of you guys understand that's just a marketing ploy, that's just a carrot that they dangle for you to call. Right? I mean, great, 51 cents a mile. What are you making? What are you bringing home every week? That's what really matters, right? How many miles are you getting at what cents per mile? That's all that really matters is how much you're bringing home. So I said, well, what do you W-2 this last year? I W-2 just a little over 55,000. And I said, okay. And so how long were you out? I was out 3 to 4 weeks to make 55,000. I said, okay, well, you want to be home every 2 weeks, but you want to make more, right? I don't know what to tell you, right? And so we sort of had a conversation. I said, look, our guys make a whole hell of a lot more than that, but they also are out longer than that. So that's sort of that balance of the scale, right? Somebody asked me in a comment earlier before the live feed, they said, hey, are there any local jobs that pay like incredibly well? And in some cases there are, right? There are some, but typically the way transportation works is sort of this scale. On one end of the scale you have home time, the other you have pay. The more home time you have, typically the less pay you get. The more pay, oftentimes you have less home time, and that's just sort of the way it works in our industry. Not all the times, right? But that's kind of a general rule of thumb. When I was chatting with this previous driver, and he said, I want to make a lot more, but I don't want to work much. I said, well, look, here's how our flowers delivery, work. And the guy said, this is driver assist. And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, that sounds like work. I said, it's because it is work. And he's like, man, I don't know. I don't know if that's for me. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that it's probably not for you, right? If you're hesitating, I'm pretty sure it's not for you. And I think everybody wants to work less and make more. I mean, that's like everybody's dream, right? But when all you're talking about is how little you want to work, I don't know that we're the right company for you. I can assure you that we're not. And that's sort of how things went. I got to tell you guys about this other call, specifically relating to Food Mooch's comment about not answering the phone. So one of my pet peeves is every time I make a phone call to a driver, I always have to, like, nobody ever answers the phone. I always have to leave a message. And then by the time I'm calling the next guy on the list, guess what? The person I just called who didn't answer but then immediately listened to my voicemail calls me right back and wants to talk as I'm talking to somebody else. So that frustrates the hell out of me. That's just a pet peeve. However, I did have one driver yesterday answer the phone. Older lady answers the phone is what it sounded like. I said, hi, could I speak to whatever his name was, right? Greg. May I ask who's calling? Yes, this is Scott. I'm with Bella Flora. He'd submitted an application, right? Blah, blah. To which Greg interrupts and says, hey, man, hey, I'm just kidding you. That's me just sounding like an old lady on the phone. I get all these scam calls, and I don't like to talk to anybody. I want to, I want to screen these calls. I want to make sure I know who it is. And I'm like, and so somehow answering it like an older woman allows you to screen those calls. How about you just answer the phone? Hey, this is Greg. No, I'm not interested, and hang up. It was like such an odd. It was such an odd I don't know. I just like all I'm envisioning when that happened is how is this individual going to answer phone calls from brokers or shippers or receivers or our customers? I mean, like that's just like that's the last individual that I want working for me if that's how he's going to answer that phone call. I don't know. It was strange. You learn something, you see something new all the time. Let's see. Foodmooch says, my dispatchers always ask me, why don't I answer my phone? Really, Briggs? Hang on, I gotta unplug this. Briggs has gotta go to the bathroom. Hey, could you make this quick? Let's see, Larry June says, I'm not gonna read that. Foodmooch. All right. Work more, work more, make less, no doubt, right? Yakima to Chicago, back to Yakima, 7 days, 4,200 miles, all hub paid. Good for you, man. Billner says, you don't get jack per mile after tax and et cetera if you make less per mile. Man, Mark, you have no idea. I called Howard. I called Howard after I made these phone calls. And I said, you're not going to believe what I've just wasted the past 45 minutes of my life and how these conversations went down, right? And it was just me whining, but I wanted somebody else to feel my pain. Somebody asked me here in a couple other live feeds ago, they were like, hey, is it tough, working from home kind of thing or that sort of thing? And let me just tell you, there are times it's great. And there are times that you just want somebody else to feel your pain, and that's best accomplished in an office environment. So I don't know, man. Mary St. Albert says it works for Miss Doubtfire. Says my wife, I can't take this load unless I'm paid $3 a mile, right? No doubt. Gary Roach says, thank God I don't deal with too many brokers hauling ADM feed products. Joe Harding, what do you want to read? What do you want to read? Benjamin Duke, work smarter, not harder, but it's called work for a reason. Isn't that the truth? Sugar Shine, welcome. How are you? Look at Howard. He says he's got to listen to a lot of my whining. That's probably true. I'm not going to argue that. Why didn't see your comment, Harding? Where'd it go? I'm looking up. Your last comment I see says no. All right. I'm going to need a bigger spreadsheet. Oh, is that what you're looking at? Here's the difference. So let me just talk about this for a minute. I'm going to jump on Harding's leg for a minute. So coupled with what I just told you guys, right? Guys saying, I want to work less and make more. And what's your job again? Oh, that sounds like a lot of work. I'm not sure I want to do that. The guy that answers the phone like a woman, right? I mean, what message are you sending me, right? All these sorts of things, all those nightmarish things. And then I got a driver over here that's running his own spreadsheets, trying to track his own cost per mile, his own fuel spend, trying to figure out how he can be better, right? To say that those conversations that I had yesterday, and again, right, it's not really fair to lump all those conversations that I had yesterday, but just certainly a couple of them that I had yesterday. So literally one opposing end of the spectrum compared to guys like Harding that are like, hey, tracking my own numbers. Here's what I see. How can I be better? What can I do this? By the way, this is a company driver. It's a company driver. Doesn't have to do that. Right? He's just like, hey, man, how can I help myself get better, and how can I help maybe us get better as a company? Yeah, there is that thing called caller ID. I mean, I don't know. Coleman says, I'm glad it was not that way when I talked to you today. Side note, Scott, let's see. You go own to Famous Dave's Barbecue down in Chandler. Do I go down to? No, I don't. I don't get down to Chandler. I don't get down to Chandler much. No, yeah, I don't. I don't get down to Chandler much. Somebody was telling me the other day, I don't know who it was, they were talking about, Sugar Shine, was it you? Somebody was telling me about some great barbecue place, and then I never saw where you got what it was called. So if that was you, Sugar Shine, what was the name of that barbecue place? Harding says, oh, leg hump. Was it as good for you? Corky's Barbecue, Fort Worth. Harding, I'm not gonna respond to that. I was about to respond to that, but I'm not gonna respond to that. So that's it. Look, calling brokers is it's not that hard. It's not nearly that scary, right? It's just not. But prepare yourself to make that call. Educate yourself so that you know what you need to ask for, so that you can kind of control that conversation. You can direct the conversation so that you get what you want, which is hopefully a good load and a good rate. Greg Inman says, some days I miss you guys. Greg, you don't have to wait long. We're going to be hauling mumps here. We're probably going to need a couple of outside drivers here in a couple of weeks. Dave's Barbecue. All right, hang on, I'm writing that down. Dave's Barbecue. Where is it? Gilbert Road? Like Gilbert Road, do you know where? I can Google it, whatever. Probably not appropriate for this live feed. Benjamin Duke, have you seen some of the YouTube comparing numbers of net pay from company drivers versus... Yes, I haven't seen that lately. When I first started YouTube back in February a year ago, so a year and a half ago, practically every video I saw was, this is how much I made driving company, and this is how much I make as a lease operator or an owner operator, and holy cow, look at these differences. The problem that so many guys didn't know was they hadn't paid taxes, they hadn't paid expenses, they hadn't paid fuel, they hadn't paid like any of that stuff, right? But these numbers over here look crazy sexy. And they do look crazy sexy. And that's why I just was so vocal for the first, probably, I don't know, almost a year of that channel, or however long it was up. About the leases. You really need to understand all the details that are in there. And Loshan, he's leased on a few different companies, and other YouTubers have as well, and they will tell you that the devil is in the details relative to those contracts. I still contend that it's very rare to find good companies that have good deals. Our contract is long. I've been working with attorneys nonstop for the past couple of weeks. We were like around 40 pages, right? There's a whole lot of CYA in there. Not just for us, but there's a whole lot of CYA in there for the lease operators that we're going to bring on. So we're trying to provide mutual protection. We're also working really hard to cut the size of that contract down significantly. But hey, James, how's it going? Leasing is no joke, he says. No doubt, right? You're married to a lease for that term, no doubt. Edmund says, give me a date to report to Missouri. UConn's got jokes, very good. Bubba Nesbitt about his numbers. Man, I wouldn't even pretend to do that. But knowing your numbers are pretty important for sure. It is. All right, so if you guys are interested, right, again, you can download the apps, or you can find this stuff on online from the load boards. It's not terribly expensive, $150, $200 a month. We'll open the doors for all the revenue that you can book. And for those that say, man, that's a pretty hefty price, it is, but understand that there's 30, 40,000 loads every day, right? That represents your opportunity for your earnings. And so we take that very seriously, as should you, and others do as well. And there's a reason for that. But it really does start with knowing what your costs are. Once you have those costs, then you can determine what your profit's going to be predicated on the price you're going to charge. So simple stuff. Orion jumps in. How's it going, man? Bigfoot Barbecue Flagstaff, rock solid. That might be worth just the trip up there, Orion, just to get out of some of the heat. Transparency is best, no doubt, no doubt. Let's see. So to go off topic, what company builds the best dry van trailer? I don't know. The Hyundais we have, they're okay. The utility trailers are pretty decent. We've got a couple Great Danes that are pretty rock solid. Benjamin Duke says, I've seen another 8 today, and they show as a company driver, they did better than the owner-operator, doing better as an authority. They were clear on what they finished net. Listen, I've ran a lot of numbers, probably surprises not many people. I've ran a lot of numbers, and I've compared those numbers to what our drivers make annually. And I'm going to tell, and I've talked to a bunch of other lease operators and owner operators, and I'm going to tell you that lease operators, owner operators, our drivers are making as much, and in some cases more, than lease operators and owner operators. The benefit here is that after 5 years, you own that truck and that trailer, or at least the truck, you own that asset. That's the benefit, right? And then you can go and do what you want, right? No forced dispatch, you can book your own loads, you can, go hire a dispatch service, you can lease on with somebody to help do your stuff on the back end if you want, back office stuff, or help book loads. I mean, you have the autonomy that you want. So if you can't afford to go and just buy a truck, right, that lease is kind of that intermediary step. But I think on average, and I don't believe what our driver pay is not average, but on average, most lease operators should be doing better than most of the company drivers. I mean, you guys have that flexibility to stay out as long as you want, right? I mean, you guys have the flexibility to find a sweetheart lane, take short runs. You guys have the opportunity to build your own business and do what you want to do. I mean, UConn's in here, right? I mean, he can tell you that there's gazillions of dollars to be made up in the Northeast. He knows that area, those lanes really well, right? Taking some of those short hops, he's going to do really well. A lot of other guys do the same thing all around the country. You have that ability to do. When you work for a company, you're going to be moving their freight or that sort of stuff. There are pros and cons to both sides of it, right? The con to the lease op and the owner op side, I mean, there's a lot of cons, but namely, right, you're sort of stuck and you're married to that for some period of time. But there are a lot of pros to it as well. I think the worst thing you can do is go into a lease op or an owner op type role and not be prepared from the business side. I think that's the worst thing you can do. It's my 2 cents. I was wrong. It's called Joe's. Not Dave's, it's Joe's. All right. Hey, Joe Harding, you want to go to Joe's Barbecue tomorrow? It's on 301 North Gilbert Road. I'll pick you up around 11. How's that sound? Marty St. Armor, what's the shortest run you had? I think still I own the record for best paying shortest run. It was 1.4 miles away. We got paid $750. It was a TQL load. We were about to deliver to a Maricold down in outside of Houston, and they had a load for us picking up like just around the building, and if that's what you're asking. The media marketing has these folks getting another truck payment. You do see some of these individuals, again, on YouTube that are visible. You see some of these individuals just getting new truck, right? Maybe there's a reason that I don't understand, but as I look at that, all I see is those guys, it sounds really disrespectful. I just don't know how else to look at it, and I don't sugarcoat things all that well. To me, those individuals they're just buying a job, right? I mean, if you're constantly changing trucks every year or twice a year or more, I don't know what else you call that. James Rogers says he's up in the Northeast a lot. Short hopping up there is the Golden Nugget. Long haul, short hop out. Very good. Chucker X says you should be there by 9 p.m. tomorrow night. Where are you going to be? We don't run up to Canada. Yukon says, got paid $7,000 to move a DOD load from the armory to another armory 42 miles away. That's pretty solid. No, Food Mooch, Joe does not need a new one. He needs a new steer tire. That's what he needs that's new. Anyone ever haul for H&M Bay? I don't know, that name doesn't sound familiar. Oh, they're LTL. It doesn't sound familiar. Roger says most of his runs are about 400 to 500 miles, currently paying the best rates I've seen. Good stuff. Michael Cartwright, welcome. Oh, you're Arizona bound. Very good. Hey, this one's long. Let's kill it. I hope you guys are doing well. For those that watch this after the fact, if there's value in having this kind of conversation, I guess let me know. We can kind of revisit it. I can make a phone call to a broker. Maybe we can get a broker on the line and kind of, see what they see as the most valuable calls that they receive from drivers. Maybe that would be a good angle to come at it. I don't know. I just don't know how much interest there is in this. I'm happy to address it if there's enough interest. Again, I can see the hesitancy. I can see you guys being scared to pick up the phone. But man, when you guys get on the load boards and you see how much freight is out there and what some of these things are paying, I think that fear factor is going to be eliminated really quickly. I think you're gonna be like, man, I'm gonna figure out my cost per mile, and I'm excited to start picking up the phone and dialing for dollars, right? Because in essence, you're the salesperson for your own business. Benjamin Duke, if you call in a rate listed load, do you try to get more? Absolutely. Like I was saying earlier, Benjamin, don't let the brokers set a low kind of set a low bar, right, for you. Don't let them trick you into saying, man, this is sort of within the ballpark of where you need to be. Do your homework. See what the truck densities are to the load ratios. Check all that out. Their job is to put as much profit in their pocket as they can. Your job is to do the exact same, but for your pocket. So that's what I got. All right, hey, you guys have a good one. John Shepard, just saw you. Say hello. We're out of here, man. You guys stay safe. Take care.